The following two films, written, produced, and edited by direct descendants of Emma and Charles Williams, are very distinct stories that will introduce you to the dynamic history of Nicodemus, Kansas, the oldest remaining all-black town west of the Mississippi. The first film, Robert and Billy, was produced and edited by sixth-generation descendant Robert Brogdon III, or Bert, as he's known, and it's a very touching Nicodemus love story dedicated to his grandparents. The second presentation, entitled The Ellis Trail to Nicodemus, End of the Journey to the Promised Land, was written and produced by fourth-generation descendant Angela Bates, with the assistance of Apt Films and Bert Brogdon. This original production tells the story of a young and pregnant Emma Williams, the first matriarch of Nicodemus, who traveled on the Ellis Trail with the first group of black settlers in the fall of 1877. She goes on to gain the distinction of birthing the very first child born free in Nicodemus in these new promised lands of western Kansas. You can enjoy this film of that historic journey reenacted by actual descendants of those original pioneers.
The town of Nicodemus was laid out in 1877. The first group of people that signed up was around 350 people. They're just out of slavery, and they're farming for someone else. They're making a living for someone else. They come out here, they can be own boss on your own land. Laws and things, discriminating, things that was going on down there, they were escaping it. I found it kind of interesting, meeting people, talking a little bit of history and where they come from, and it's interesting. You meet some interesting people. My name is Robert Brogdon. I'm the maintenance man for the Nicodemus National Historic Site. I have lived in Nicodemus since 1975. I was drafted in June of 1953. And it was the summer that they signed a ceasefire in Korea. I was in basic training at Camp Atterbury, Indiana. And so once the ceasefire was signed, they had to make a decision on what they were going to do with the troops that they had in training. The decision was made to close Camp Atterbury, move personnel, equipment, and everything to Camp Carson, Colorado. The Jeep that I was assigned to as assistant driver was assigned to Way Station 6, which was over in Hays, Kansas. We found out that in Hays they had a sundowners law, and it wasn't safe for blacks to be out after dark. But they did tell us about this all-black town north of Hays, which was Nicodemus. In a car that was built for 6, we had about 10 people, and we came to Nicodemus. When we found Nicodemus, a little action going on at the township hall. They were having a practice for their homecoming. When we walked in, the practice broke up, and the young lady started funneling out. And so while I'm standing back there in the double doors, and at the time when she came through, when I saw her, just, wow, boy, she's a pretty gal. Woo! Billy Bates. Before I even met her, I had this dream. I could see the outline of a lady with long hair but no face. There she was. So things were great. We used to come out every night, come to Nicodemus, play cards or do whatever we were trying to do, And then I got an assignment to Okinawa. She liked to wear large earrings, and I asked her for one. And when I went to Okinawa on a troop ship and was out in the middle of the ocean, just got an urge just to fling it out in the middle of the ocean. A connection between just the two of us that nobody else would ever touch. When I was out there, throwed it out in the ocean, that was that. She thought that was the greatest thing ever happened. When I got back, I think the whole time Nicodemus was up there waiting on me. We got engaged during that time. And we got married in November. One of them deals that you ain't got no clue as to what the hell you're getting into. I just figured as long as she was with me, we could make it. Didn't care where it was. I was working 2 jobs to make things work. When I come home from the second job, she'd have the kids in bed and have a little snack ready before I go to bed. And man, get all this for working 2 jobs. What I get for what I took on a 3rd job. We used to think, hey, this is gonna go on forever. The only way they're gonna keep us from chasing each other, they'll have to take the wheels off the wheelchair. She died from a kidney failure. Kidneys stopped working on her. And even then, when she's having problems, I just figured she'd get over it. I just couldn't see her leaving. I just told her, she's been a wonderful wife, loved her, and it's okay. We're gonna be all right. And hey, that she's been a good mother, good grandmother. She done all she could do. And she looked at me and that was it, And then I was even protective of her. The shell that was left up to the soul, the spirit had gone. Wasn't nothing there but just a vessel. But it was still, to me, it was still her. So they had to treat it like that. Just not like, bag of bones, do whatever you like. Not while I was around. Even then, I felt like part of my heart went with her. And that I could never love another woman like I loved her. I talked to other people that lost their soulmates. Some people can survive it. Some people follow them right behind them, go. It's just tough. Some people wondered how I made it through it, but I go to church, I do a lot of praying, I trust the Lord. I did have the support of the kids. They circled the wagons around me when I needed them. They were there, they looking out for me, you know what I mean? Biggest change is just the loneliness, but not having her around to talk to or no one. I find myself sometimes sitting up looking at nothing but walls. I have to get out of here. And you just, hey, you spend that much time with a person. We were together 53 years.
This is a captivating personal story, unfolding and revealed within the epic saga of the first African Americans migrating west from the Jim Crow South to the uncharted western frontier and vast treeless prairies of northwest Kansas in the fall of 1877. It's the story of one family's trek from Kentucky, with the first group of migrants headed for their new home in the new settlement known as Nicodemus. They would become first-time landowners, homesteaders, and, for the very first time, they would experience a taste of real freedom in their new place in America.
This beautiful but barren landscape held their promise and dreams in the promised lands of Kansas. Join them during this last leg of a long journey west and on what has become known as the Ellis Trail to Nicodemus.
After the Civil War and the end of Reconstruction, when federal troops were pulled from the South, formerly enslaved African Americans were left to live in a hostile and Jim Crow-controlled environment with very few means at their disposal to eke out an independent life of freedom. The government's new Freedmen Bureau, which was initially established to provide educational and financial services in order to secure the rights afforded to these new American citizens, in all actuality did very little to accomplish that aim. The Freedmen Schools and the short-lived Freedmen Banks provided only the start of what was needed for them to survive and grow into full citizenship. This tumultuous environment generated a desire and ultimately created a great push for African Americans to leave the South and go elsewhere to create a new life. But where? Where were they to go? How would they get there? And once there, how would they survive? Around this same time period, on the Great Plains of the Midwest and western United States, the Indian Wars were also coming to an end. With the Civil War over, the U.S. government pushed to achieve manifest destiny from sea to shining sea. In between these great coastal waters was the interior, and in the middle of that, the Great Plains. The Great Plains had been home to the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Crow, Sioux, Kiowa, Potawatomi, and other indigenous Native American tribes. They had fought fiercely to hold on to their homelands, only to be ultimately forced onto reservations and into Indian territory. They were issued treaties that were constantly broken or revised, all the while assuring these nomadic people it was in their best interest. Well, these actions by the U.S. government destroyed a way of life for these Native Americans, but created a new way of life for immigrants who acquired these free government lands as homesteaders. These homestead lands became the lure of the West, and newly emancipated African Americans recognized this as a great opportunity to start a new life of freedom in the West.
I dreamed of a place far beyond the thick trees of Kentucky, beyond the slow ripple of the Elkhorn Creek, a place with little water but vast open plains, a place where I saw the horizon, where there were no trees, a place where the wind constantly blew at my face. The sky was so bright, so clear, so vast, meeting the ground at the edges of the world. And at night, the canopy of 1,000 stars as I slept. I dreamed of this place, a place we called home, where freedom was more than a mere word, where the night riders could no longer keep us living in fear. I dreamed of real freedom in this place, and as I awoke, I realized that it was only a dream, that this place of freedom was not here. No, this place of freedom was not here.
Newlywed and pregnant, Emma and her husband Charles Williams attended a meeting in the spring of 1877 at the Georgetown, Kentucky Baptist Church. They heard two men from Kansas, one white, W.R. Hill, and his partner, Reverend Simon Roundtree, an eloquently speaking black minister, telling of opportunities of new homes in the promised lands of Kansas. They offered to help secure free government land for all those that joined their town company and wanted to travel west and settle in their new all-black town known as Nicodemus. Although named Nicodemus and located on the Solomon River in the promised lands of Kansas, the town was named for an African prophet who told of a time when freedom would come to the enslaved. He had pleaded in a song, "Wake Nicodemus," to wake him up for the great Jubilee. The image and dream of owning their own land in a new place where slavery never existed appealed to both Charles and Emma. They felt it could be the very place for them to raise their new family, and, with a leap of great faith, they decided to leave Kentucky and start a new life in a new land. It was decided that Charles would stay behind that first winter to secure more finances in order to better equip them for building their new home in the West. He trusted Emma's mother to assist in delivering their new baby, and he promised to meet them there in the spring. It was settled then. Emma, along with her parents Tom and Zarina Johnson and siblings Ella and Henry, would soon leave Kentucky and all the memories of slavery behind. With God on their side and faith in their hearts, they joined the town company and agreed to travel west in the fall of 1877 when the townsmen would return to guide them and others to Nicodemus, to the free soils of Kansas. In 1877, the Cincinnati Southern Railroad opened a new north-south line from Cincinnati, Ohio to Nashville, Tennessee, right through the heart of central Kentucky. This expansion allowed folks to board trains at depots all along the line running north from Lexington to Cincinnati, where they would then board trains going west. Men, women, and children, and extended families from all around Scott and Fayette counties were eager to leave Kentucky. They gathered at area depots and purchased tickets to board trains. Among these first settlers and families leaving for Kansas were the Kirtleys, the Scotts, Weltons, Davenports, Harrises, Baxters, Lillies, Vaughns, and the Johnsons. In September of 1877, Sadieville's depot was flooded with this large group of hopeful area settlers, eagerly awaiting their opportunity to board the train that would take them west.
Well, time now for us to be boarding this train. Train going to the promised lands of Kansas. And you know, before we get on that train, it's always a good idea to make sure that we have Jesus with us.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
Go with us,
We're going to
Lord.
trust you, Lord. Because we know that you can make a way out of no way. Come, Lord, now, go and be our guest. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Emma Williams, her parents Tom and Zarina Johnson, and siblings Ella and Henry were among this very group.
There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. For the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. We shall sing on that beautiful shore the melodious songs of the blessed, and our spirit shall sorrow no more. Not a sigh for the blessing of rest. beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. We shall meet on that beautiful shore.
Emma Johnson had recently married Charles Williams when the Johnson family decided to go west. She was with child, and although newlyweds, Charles encouraged Emma to go with her family so she would be in the secure hands of her mother, Zarina Johnson, when she had their baby. Charles gave Emma a yellow rose and told her to wait patiently for him to arrive in the spring with the next group of settlers going west. She was apprehensive regarding the situation, heartbroken and scared as well. Nevertheless, she chose to honor his wishes and go with her family and wait for her new husband in the new land. Holding the rose in her hand as a keepsake and promise, Emma left Charles standing on the station platform as the train pulled out. Tearful and sad, yet hopeful and with great faith, she said her goodbyes while throwing him kisses through the thick Kentucky air. When the group of pioneer settlers from central Kentucky stepped from the train at Ellis, Kansas in September of 1877, they did so with great anticipation. This was the last leg of a long journey from Kentucky to their new home in the West. These once enslaved and now emancipated men, women, and children still had no land or place to call their own. With a leap of great faith and trust in God, they decided to go west to become homesteaders and look forward to a new life of freedom on the high plains of northwest Kansas.
Did we make the right decision, Tom? This land is so barren. Where are all the trees? This looks like the end of the earth, 'cause you can see forever.
Not like the trees in Kentucky. This land has a strange beauty about it. That's why it's called a prairie.
Look, you see that yellow bird there? I heard a man from Kansas call that a meadowlark. It's got a yellow and black belly and a sweet song.
Sounds like it's welcoming us to Kansas.
You know, Hill Roundtree said it's gonna take 2-day walk to get to Nicodemus.
2 days? 2 days is gonna be tough. I'm carrying Charles's baby.
Not to worry, baby. We're gonna help you the entire way.
Sis, I'll help you. And if you need to ride in the wagons, you can.
You're carrying the hope of the new generation, the firstborn baby free. I'll carry the whole way to Nicodemus if I have to.
Don't worry, Emma. We will get you there safely. Between God and us, we will get you to Nicodemus.
Sisters Ella and Emma traveled with their parents Tom and Zarina Johnson and their older brother Henry. All had been the enslaved property of Vice President Richard M. Johnson of the Van Buren administration. As members of the Georgetown Baptist Church in Kentucky, they had listened to W.R. Hill and Reverend Simon Roundtree, who were the town speculators and organizers of the colony of Nicodemus. John Niles of Lexington had organized their particular group and traveled with them as they left the war-torn and Jim Crow South to experience a new life of freedom in the West. Nicodemus lay 35 long miles by foot north of Ellis, Kansas.
Emma and Ella were close and grew closer as their bond strengthened. During each passing day, on their long and unfamiliar journey west. They loved each other, were in awe of each other's strength and beauty, and were proud to be the daughters of their strong but gentle, wise, and visionary mother, Zarina Johnson.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, I'm from the newspaper, the Ellis Standard, and Mr. Thomas. I was wondering if you would mind giving me your name.
Why, I don't mind. It's Miss Kitty Jones.
Miss Kitty Jones. And where are all you colored folks going?
Why, we're headed to Nicodemus. They say it's somewhere north, but it's going to be our new home.
Is this your first time on the Kansas Prairie?
It is, and I must say, it's pretty barren out here. Back where I'm from, Georgetown, Kentucky, you can hardly see. There's so many trees.
Well, you're going to have fun going to Nicodemus. That's almost 40 miles away. You're going to be on the prairie 2-3 days, at least one night.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we'll manage.
And when you get settled in Nicodemus, feel free to come back to Ellis for anything you need.
Thank you. It's nice meeting you.
Thank you, Miss Kitty. Have a good day.
Come on, Mr. Tomlinson. I think you got enough for your paper. Let's get going and let these folks get back on their travel.
I suppose with all these folks come in, it seems like Western Kansas is really getting settled up.
Well, we got winter coming on.
Yeah, I suppose we'll find out come spring how they're doing.
We're going to go about as far as the Saline River. It's about 10 miles north. And there we and the horses will take a rest.
Word of caution, folks. There's lots of rattlesnakes out here on the prairie. But one thing is, they'll always rattle a little bit before they strike. So you be careful where you sit, where you walk, and where you stand. But extra careful, because if they bite you, chances are you're going to die.
Sir, our daughter here is with child. Can she ride on one of these wagons?
Yes, we can make room for her on the seat of one of the wagons.
Oh, I do thank you, sir. Thank you.
What other dangers are there? Indians? Are there Indians?
Most all of the Indians have been moved south of here, so you won't see any Indians.
The Indians have had their land taken away from them, and here we are trying to find our place in it.
What lay beyond the small, dusty railroad town of Ellis intrigued them as they walked and looked about with great wonder. They thought of what lay ahead in this unfamiliar environment, an unknown land called Kansas. Little did they know they were making history that would reflect their experiences and the unique chapter they were creating in the epic story of the settling of the Great American West. Yes, they were writing their own story as a new generation, finally free and able to participate in manifest destiny.
You see those bluffs yonder? That's where we're headed.
Yeah. Right over there and the straight north of Nicodemus, right?
Right.
Does that compass work? I mean, does it really work?
That compass works all the time, and that's the reason you have them here, and you need your landmarks.
Well, you sure can tell we're in some new country here. Hot, too. But it ain't as hot as it is in Kentucky. Sticky, hot, feel like we're in a cook stove. And I ain't seen no road or path, not near yet. What the hell are we?
We are out here and headed to Nicodemus. We know where our landmarks are, and we have a compass, and we're going to make it straight north of that landmark.
Doesn't look like much of a river. Kind of reminds me of the Elkhorn Creek back home in Kentucky.
Not much water, but it is cool and clear.
And even some shade along here, too. Thank goodness.
You just rest now, okay? They say we still have a ways to go today.
Yep. Got a long ways, a little bit further to go north before we bed down for the night.
I heard Mr. Hill says by the hollow. Gives a little break from this wind. Also, there's a creek down there for some fresh water.
Y'all hear that bird? That bird's singing again.
Suppose it's telling us to rest a while.
I see it. See right there? Yellowtail. Sitting right up on that branch there.
Oh, yes, I see it. It's a pretty little bird, isn't it? Singing its sweet, sweet song again. Oh, my yellow rose done wilted. Well, I'm saving it just the same. Until I can see my Charles again.
Time for us folks to leave this resting place so we can get to the hollow and bed down for the night.
Yep, we're gonna need to build a big fire. That way we can keep the wolves and the coyotes away. Then we can get a good night's sleep for that big push tomorrow, Nicodemus.
The face of the West was changing from red and white to include the black faces of soldiers known as Buffalo Soldiers, as well as black pioneer settlers. The journey had required a long, hard crossing of uncharted prairie. These newcomers were tired and needed sleep before taking their final steps into Nicodemus. As the sun set in the west, night began to fall. The weary group made their way into Happy Hollow, where they would spend the night. A creek flowing with plenty of water ran between two large deep meadows that sheltered the travelers from the wind. There was plenty of room for both wagons and people. They had completed most of their journey to Nicodemus, and they were anxious as they bedded down. Before dark descended upon the group, horses were unhitched from the wagons, and folks mingled with excitement and anticipation for the coming day. As the evening shadows grew, fear replaced excitement for some of them, as they worried about what the complete darkness might bring in the strange new land.
Coyotes? And wolves?
Don't worry. The fire will keep them back.
Look, Tom. The stars are out. And it's not even dusk.
Reverend Roundtree says here in Kansas, there are so many stars at night that you can't even begin to count them all. And all the black spaces in between, too.
The vast, treeless prairie was all the travelers could see in every direction. Distant Nicodemus stood like an island in a sea of grass. This land they would soon call home. They would grow to love it.
They say we can see our new home in Nicodemus from here.
Look, Ring, you can see north across the valley.
Look. That must be Nicodemus.
Must be Nicodemus.
This is God's country. This is our promised land.
Welcome to Nicodemus, your new home.
Oh, freedom. I feel it in my bones.
I smell it in the air. I can see it everywhere.
Well, folks, we made it. This is Nicodemus. I know it doesn't seem like much of a town, but with your hard work, you're going to make it a town.
Where the houses?
Look over there. Mr. Smith is coming to greet us. He's coming out of his dugout. A dugout is where you're going to live until you can build your above-ground houses.
Well, looks like we got our work cut out for us. But we got plenty of shovels.
Well, Miss Emma here, she's with child. So she's going to have the first child born in Nicodemus. So I suggest that we build her the first dugout home.
Yes, sir. I think we should all work together. and build her dugout first.
This has been a pretty arduous trip over here from Ellis.
Yeah, well, when I came in from the west, and it wasn't too bad a trail over there, so when we go back, let's take it that direction and see if it's any better.
Sounds good.
I hear what you've been saying, and we're going to be using that trip back to Ellis, trail back to Ellis quite a bit to pick up mail and to pick up supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's any better, let's go that way.
There's a few little rough spots right over in there, but you can drive around them.
Okay. And once the wagons pass, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see where the horses went and the wagons went.
Yeah.
Well, let's use that route for the wagons. But if and when we're walking, let's use the east route nearest the base of the mound.
Whether you go east or you go west, once you get to Gady Hill, with a compass, you know that Nicodemus is straight north.
All right. That works good.
I left Charles. The man I love. The man I married to be with Mama and come have this baby. Oh, I hope I'm making the right decision.
You did, sis. But are you scared?
Well, of course I'm scared. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. But I'm most scared for Charles. I'm scared that he won't ever make it or won't be able to meet our baby. Oh, I'm terrified he won't make it. He'll get lost, hurt, or even die on the way out here. It was such a long journey.
You just keep on praying. God won't let you down. You'll have that baby. The first baby to be born in Nicodemus. The first in our family. You'll see him as he promised. Come spring.
I will. I am. It's just so far away, I can't even measure the distance between us. But I pray spring will come soon. God, please bring Charles home safely.
Emma delivered her first baby with the assistance of her mother, Zarina. She named her son Henry after her brother. After his birth, Emma prayerfully waited for Charles to come. Her rose wilted and died, but she kept it in her Bible until Charles finally arrived with the second group of settlers in the spring of 1878. Oh, sweet taste of freedom! O land of the free, free soils of Kansas, windswept prairie, dry hot winds, buffalo bones afar. Meadowlark sweet song, lone wolf sings praises to the North Star. Milky Way, the canopy outstretched above this vast prairie. O Kansas, we survived the sting and death of slavery, to live here, to be free, to call this our home. Emma had 4 more children after Henry: Maggie, Charles, Clara, and Neil. The rose was last seen during the 1990s in a Bible owned by Yvonne Sayers, the granddaughter of Henry. For over 140 years, most of the residents of Nicodemus have been related to or are descendants of the Emma Charles Williams family. Their second son, Charles, was my grandfather.
My great-grandfather was the first baby that was born, and that's who Emma was carrying when she walked across the plains. And just to imagine how our ancestors did that long walk And the trails were so hard, but they were determined to get here. And especially Emma, to have her baby on free land. My grandmother, she had a flower that was given to Emma. It was a yellow rose. And my mother, she had that yellow rose, but I'm not sure what happened to it. It was passed down from person to person. Our story is being told, and I feel like our ancestors are saying, wow, they remembered, or they're remembering us. And it's something that I have shared with my friends and relatives and everybody that cares to listen about Nicodemus.
We learned in doing this filming that it wasn't easy just walking across the prairie. Some of us fell, some of us almost fell, and we had to get back up and keep going. So it's sort of like a metaphor for the destiny of this group of people. They had to get up and keep going even though things knocked them down.
I had a new respect of Nicodemus, a new respect of what our ancestors went through, just going that trail, the tall grass and not knowing what was there up under all the grass. If I had to be in that time and age, I just don't know. But they came through, they did what they had to do.
I was so proud to be a part of this, to be on our farm, on our land. And we grew up hearing the story, well, that's the trail of Nicodemus. We always heard about it. We knew about Nicodemus, but we never went there, but we didn't go to other towns either. But to have this experience, oh my gosh, I've just fallen in love with all the people. And when this is our second time to get together and we just hug each other like we haven't seen each other in 90 years and we're best friends and we just love each other. It's just been an incredible, incredible experience. So grateful.
It was really, really nice for me to be able to do that. And it was an honor and a privilege to be involved in this. We've had so much fun, the camaraderie. We've just been able to relive almost sometimes in history the way it come about.
I felt very humbled and very honored to carry on this legacy and share her story. It's a very historical movement with my family, and I'm so blessed to have someone who knows so much history and that they documented all this stuff so we know to do something like this and share it with the world.
I'm kind of a history buff, so I think this history story from 1877, walking from Ellis to settle the town of Nicodemus, is a story that needed to be told, and that's what this film documentary did, and I'm proud to be part of it.
As I read the narration, I was moved by the fact that they came from Lexington, Kentucky, and some of the problems that they did have and the things they encountered in a totally different land. I thought it was pretty interesting. There's a lot of history in the Midwest that a lot of people are not aware of, and I just live a few miles, less than 100 miles from the location where the transition happened, and I wasn't even aware of some of that stuff. So it was very interesting and eye-opening to me.
With the history of that has not been told, I think it's so important that we make strides to dig up the past, because I feel that our ancestors are screaming from beyond. They all had stories and they want to be remembered as well. And so it's up to us to bring their characters alive, to do your research. We are carrying that fiber of all the folks that came before us. It's very important. So we are living out some of the dreams and their prayers, of course.
Just being a part of something that was a part of my heritage was enough for me. Our little time that we spent alongside the wagons was not weeks and months even. It was just a few days, and I just can't imagine what they had to go through.
One of the things I walked away with is the knowledge of how hard it was back in 1877, and how these people had to really persevere to maintain and to eventually accomplish surviving in Nicodemus. And it gave me a better understanding of what it really was like out there in that sun and out there filming this and working on this project.
What I've taken away from this experience is that I want to see a part 2 for one. I want to see a part 2 of this because the full story of Nicodemus still needs to be told of even how it got started. Well, that scene when we were told there's Nicodemus, we're looking off into this distance and we're seeing this new place that's going to be our home. And I remember asking the director, is like, how do you want this to feel? And when I was told to just feel my ancestors, I channeled them at that moment. I felt them move up through the bottom of my feet, through my body. And I could just only imagine what it could have felt like for them to just say, this is going to be our new home. Let's get to work. Let's get to work and make this nothing out of something.
You know, I'm not superstitious or anything like that, but we were standing there and one of the other actors started talking about Nicodemus. They were right there with us. I could sense it. That's how I felt. That it was emotional. It was pretty emotional when we stood below the mound and looked towards Nicodemus, because we had just walked their footsteps for a couple of days of their life.
We all felt our ancestors at that time. They were going for freedom, but they was going to a place where it was going to be theirs. And they could make it for what it was. And right to this day, I believe that's why Nicodemus is still in existence. Because they left their mark. They left their mark. And we're here not wanting that mark to go away, regardless. So it's not what the world gave us, it's what they gave us. And we can keep that going. And we can pass it down and never, ever be ashamed of our heritage.
Ever. Appreciative of everything that our ancestors gave us before we even had it. Because we wouldn't be able to have Nicodemus if they hadn't been steadfast in building Nicodemus for us to have. This is our heritage.
Yeah, but also something else they taught us was that no matter where we went, we always had a home to come back to. And not too many people can say that. Mm-hmm. You know, we can always say we can go home.
I just promise to continue to share the story. No matter who I encounter, I always tell people about where I'm from and the history behind it, and to definitely go visit such a place, the National Historic Site of Nicodemus. So no matter who I encounter, sorry, but you're gonna listen about me and about my family and where we came from and establish that town in 1877 of Nicodemus.
The making of the telling of this story all started with a dream to share the past, to reflect on struggles, trials, and tribulations those black pioneers encountered on their quest. The miles traversed to Kansas from Kentucky no doubt at times felt fearful and surreal, but they also held a wonderful excitement for what new freedom in new lands would soon reveal. The trek itself would prove to be exhausting, For sure, the faint of heart had no place in this plan. Like ancient times, with faith in God they traveled to a windy western Kansas promised land. So very, very different from their old home, this place, so barren, flat, and dry, yet still possessed such beauty in its own right, with a wild and free and vast and open sky. The sounds in this new land, so strange and haunting, as time went on, they grew to know and love, with western Kansas winds and smells so daunting, magnificent, those countless stars above. This place called Nicodemus held new dreams for them, though tears and trials and troubles lay ahead. They faced them with a sweet anticipation, still remembering the shackles they had shed. What great history they've given us to share today. What a story they have left us to behold, with reflection on participating characters, those pioneers, so brave, so strong, so bold. Their transition we can only now imagine, their journey to this new land they'd call home, and what they felt and what they saw we'll truly never see, for history's just past images we're shown. The making of the telling of this story conjured feelings and emotions from us all, with cast and crew all trudging slowly forward through the prairie lands of Kansas in the fall, with images of ancestors holding weary hopes and dreams as they finally saw their destination at long last, and with great anticipation of new freedom in this land, releasing yet still remembering and honoring their past. Yes, these images are pure energy, and always such will be, changing form but ever present without fail, and the presence of that energy can still be felt today from those who traveled on the Ellis Trail.